to welcome you today. The webinar is being recorded, so please could you click that you're okay for the recording to go ahead if that little screen has shown up. Thank you. My name's Isabel Jago. I'm the manager for Digital Creativity Labs at the University of York, and I'm delighted today to introduce our speaker, Jamie Sefton. Jamie is the managing director for Game Republic. Game Republic is the largest games business network in the north of England, and it works to support and promote the Yorkshire and north of England games industry. Lots of the Game Republic member companies are in fact video game companies that we've worked with here at the University of York. Some names that some of you may recognise include Revolution Software, Rockstar, Rebellion North, Sumo Digital, to name but a few. So Game Republic Network, they produce content for a wide range of regional events, including Bradford Animation Festival, the Eurogamer Expo in Leeds, and lots of other ones. And they support local businesses, regional businesses, through regular industry reports, networking. They promote games that are in development. And importantly, they're there to foster those all-important connections, which the games businesses really need to thrive in the region. Now, Jamie tells me that his journey with gaming began way back in the late 70s, playing Pong in his living room. And
everything was black and white.
Everything's black and white, yes, and a bit linear.
In the olden days.
And I understand he was that student who was setting up games in computer club at school as well, and hacking all the school computers. So there you go.
Making money, charging.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Actually, the teachers took all the money. I collected the money.
What?
And they took it, and I never heard what happened to it.
Well, there's a story there. So Jamie came to leading Game Republic from a background in gaming journalism, writing. So he's really got a very broad perspective on this creative and very fast changing industry. And of course, I just wanted to also mention the very important role that he has played as a key member of the advisory board for Digital Creativity Labs over the past 5 years. And he's provided some really excellent input for our team. So thank you for that, Jamie.
Yeah, no, pleasure.
Okay. Today, he's going to be sharing with us some thoughts on how to get ahead in the games industry, how to get jobs in the industry, and where the Games Republic can play a role there as well. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. Jamie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure.
And without more, I'm going to hand over to you.
Good stuff. Right, I'm going to share my screen now, so hopefully this will work. Right, there we go. Can you see that okay?
Yes.
Great stuff. Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining this talk today. So yeah, basically, I'm just going to do a 15-20 minute talk, quite brief really, and then you can ask me questions about getting into the industry. So I get asked a lot, from students and folks who've just left university or about to go to university. How do you get a job in the industry? So I've prepared this talk. Some of you might have seen it before. I have updated it. I update it almost every week because the amazing thing about the games industry is it just changes so quickly. So this talk last year would be very different to the one that I'll do this year. But yeah, take about 15-20 minutes, and then please, if there's anything that comes up, just feel free to ask me questions. So yeah, we mentioned before about the 1970s. This is me, aged I think about 10 years old, playing on a it's called a Tandy TRS-80. And you can see how clunky and chunky it is there. This would be called retro graphics now. But I just fell in love with computer games. I just couldn't believe how amazing it was that you could just control something on the screen. I think that feeling is people just don't get that nowadays, and why should they? But at the time, it was amazing to be able to control something on the screen, on the TV, and I just became absolutely obsessed with games. Used to write my own games, as I say. Used to run a computer club at school, and we used to play pranks on the teachers. so that if they tried to press a key, it said error and things like that, and kind of snigger at the back of the class, and just have a lot of fun with computers. And my dad used to say to me, you know, what are you doing indoors? You know, I think I'll just go back to that picture. You can see the curtains in my bedroom are welded shut there. It's probably a nice sunny day outside. You know, what are you doing indoors? You'll never get anywhere playing games. And bless him, my dad was completely wrong. I ended up getting a job in the games industry, working on magazines such as Official Nintendo Magazine and PC Zone. In fact, a lot of them are all dead now. I don't know if there's anything to do with me, but that is the case. Lots of websites as well, and just absolutely loved it. Went to visit lots of different developers around the world. You know, I went to see Valve quite recently in 2018 it was, yeah. And I've just met some of my heroes like Yu Suzuki there in the bottom left, who made Outrun and some amazing games for Sega. So it really is a fantastic industry, and you do get to go to some fantastic places and see the world. You know, it's not just based in your bedroom at home, which is a funny thing to say, because actually most of the industry is based at home in their bedrooms at the moment until we get back to working in offices. But it's a great industry to get into, and I just fell in love with it right from the beginning. A little bit about Game Republic. I mean, Isabel was very kind to kind of talk about us there, but yes, we are basically a games industry network, a business-focused network. For Yorkshire and the north of England, and we have lots of members who I'll talk about in a bit. We run events in the region, and because of the recent, obviously, you know, this pandemic thing that's going on at the moment, we've run digital events, which has meant actually that we've been able to speak to companies that are based in America and France and Poland, like GOG. Valve are based in America, Ubisoft in France, and we'll be able to speak directly to those companies. So that's been really quite an interesting upside to running digital events, is that you'll see Molly Carroll in the bottom there from Valve, as well as doing the physical events. So that's been interesting, and I think that's something that I will continue to do going forward. I think doing digital events is great because you can record them, people can watch them at their leisure. It means that if you can't make the event, you can still get the content. So yeah, we're learning as we go along in this kind of brave new world, and it's been interesting to see the reaction. And we also run things like the Game Republic Student Showcase, which some of you might have heard of, but it's basically a showcase for final year students to show off their work to games companies, and they get judged in categories such as game audio and game design. And we've run our last two events as digital events, and it's been fantastic. You know, we've had some great buy-in from companies that Isabel mentioned there, like Rockstar Leeds and Rebellion North and Sumo. And I'm really proud of the student showcase. You know, we've had more than 100 placements and full-time jobs over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, which is just brilliant. And it just allows all our students and our universities to show off their best work, and I think it's really valid. And yeah, I get to promote the region's games industry on, you know, any platform that I could possibly get my ugly mug onto. A little bit as well about Game Republic, as well as doing the network stuff, I also run games events. So obviously we haven't been doing the physical events recently, but in the past I've run stuff like for Leeds International Festival, we did an amazing video game orchestra, which you'll see in the bottom left, where we had, you know, you haven't lived unless you've heard an orchestral version of the Tetris theme tune, which is pretty amazing. And I also program speakers for the in Bradford for the Yorkshire Games Festival, which we're hoping to go back to a physical event next February 2022. And I've also delivered events in America as well, which has been great fun, you know, in Boston and Seattle. And we've been running in the last year digital events, which has been, again, fascinating. You know, our events usually in America, we get maybe 300-400 people coming along, and we have, you know, 250 meetings. At the digital events, we had 1,500 people coming. We had 1,000 meetings. You know, we tripled, quadrupled what we did in our physical events. and we allowed many more people to attend from all over the world. So again, really interesting, that there are some advantages to doing digital events. I think as an events organizer, I'm learning as much as anyone else during this strange time. Right, on to just a little quiz. So if you want to have a guess at some of these, but where in the world are the following games made? So first of all, I want to know what the game is and whereabouts do you think it's made. So does anybody want to guess? I'll have a look and see if anybody's putting some things in. But basically, let's have a look. Chats, here we go. Let's have a look. Yeah, you've got it. Red Dead Redemption. Well done. It's actually Red Dead Redemption 2. And where do you think that game is made? It's made by Rockstar, obviously, but where is that game made? Yeah, USA. Good guess. Yeah. Where else? Anybody want to have a guess? Newcastle. Yeah, fair enough. Cool. Right, we'll move on to the next game. So have a look at this one. Anybody can guess what this game is? It's quite. It's not immediately what you might think it is. So if anybody can have a guess at that one, what do you think? It's a very cute game, actually. It's brilliant, and it's got a good 2-player as well. Anybody want to hazard a guess at that one? It is, yeah, Sackboy. It is indeed, and it's from obviously. I was thinking some of you might say Little Big Planet, but it is in fact Sackboy: A Big Adventure, which came out for PlayStation 5 last year, and basically both of these games are made in Yorkshire. So I'm stretching it a bit, I must admit, with Red Dead Redemption 2 because it's mainly made by Rockstar North, which is and Rockstar San Diego. But a lot of the work, especially on the PC version, was done in Leeds. And when I was playing it recently, I saw one of our student showcase winners from about 7 years ago pop up in the credits, which was just absolutely amazing. I was so excited. And Sackboy: Big Adventure is made in Sheffield, and Sumo Digital work on some really huge franchises, including like Sonic the Hedgehog and games like that as well. So some games that you might not realize have a huge input from Yorkshire. And these are just some of the games that are made in our region that you might not realize as well, like Team Sonic Racing. Obviously a massive franchise with Sonic. You think got to be Japan. It's made in Sheffield. We've got Angry Birds VR, which is made in Leeds as well. Obviously Grand Theft Auto 5. Again, a lot of the online, GTA Online, is made in Leeds. We've got Sniper Elite, made by Rebellion North in Wakefield, sunny Wakefield. And we've got mobile games, again, made in Ossett, and Revolution Software making Beyond the Steel Sky there, which launched last year. So we've got tons going on. Worms as well. And these are, again, some of the companies that we've already mentioned quite a few times previously. Some of them you might not have heard of, like in the top right there, you can see the logo for a company called Bone Loaf. They're based in Sheffield, and they make a brilliant little indie game that's actually quite successful, very big, called Gang Beasts, with little jelly fighters, and it's a wonderful game. So we've got a real kind of amazing kind of breadth of companies really that are doing all kinds of games, from mobile to VR to blockbusters to quirky indie stuff. One of our companies has just made a game called The Magnificent Truffle Pigs. It's a company called Thunked, and it's a metal detecting game, and I highly recommend it if you like games with storylines. It's very cool. But again, the range of games are just really, really quite amazing. So a little bit about the UK games industry. I'm not going to dwell on all these figures and facts and things, but last year, obviously, people were locked down, so games were a big part of bringing people together and keeping you amused and keeping you fit as well. The games industry soared by 29% last year, up to £7 billion to the UK economy. Interestingly, about 3.5 times more than the fishing industry. Do we hear as much about the games industry as the fishing industry? No, we don't. I don't know why, but we don't. We've got more than 150 companies involved in the Yorkshire and Humber games industry. And interestingly, nearly all our companies in the region and in the UK are SMEs, so small companies employing less than 250 people. 2,300 companies across the UK, and half of the game dev jobs, actually it's around about 55%, are based outside of London and the southeast. So this is a really national industry. It's interesting, like TV and film tends to be based around London. A lot of the, like Soho, probably a square mile of Soho, you've got most of the TV and film industry. But games is based across the whole country, which I think is really cool. And obviously we've got some fantastic courses in this in the region as well, including University of York. So games industry trends. So these are some of the things that are going on in the industry at the moment that you might not be aware of, or perhaps you should be aware of. AR, VR, MR, whatever you want to call it, all the acronyms. Oculus Quest 2, PSVR 2 is coming out soon as well. So VR and AR and all those kind of virtual reality items, they're not kind of mainstream yet, but they're becoming more popular, and more and more people that I know have like an Oculus Quest 2 or have access to VR, and quite a few of our companies are doing very well at making VR games and experiences. Cooperative Innovations, for example, in Leeds, is making experiences where you can go to virtual museums. They're working in the cultural side of things. So lots of opportunities there. Different business models. I mean, this is changing all the time, free to play, loot boxes, DLC, subscription. The latest thing, obviously, Bitcoin and all these non-fungible tokens, all this kind of stuff. This is going to, the industry is changing all the time. So they're going to always be looking at new ways of making money and new ways of companies to be able to create their games and make money from their games, because that's really important. If you can't make money from your game, you're not going to survive as a business, and it means you're not going to make your next game. Games as a service is a big thing at the moment. So you've got games like Destiny and Fortnite and Overwatch and games like that that basically continue to evolve and keep you playing for more than a week or two. They keep you playing for months, years even, so they're really important. And obviously the new consoles as well that we've got, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, they keep everyone interested and looking forward to what's coming next. Esports obviously is a huge thing. Obviously we haven't got crowds like this at the moment, but esports is still huge and becoming more and more popular. YouTube and Twitch streaming is, I know so many people that have gone into streaming, and streaming playing games now is a massive side of the industry. Streaming, talking of streaming as well, there's streaming games now. So obviously you've got Google Stadia, PlayStation Now, Amazon Luna is the latest one as well. So I think while it's sort of not really caught on at the moment, I think streaming will be increasingly important, I think, in the future. And it's interesting that some of my friends have decided to, for example, stream the latest blockbusters on Google Stadia, because they don't need a big, a new console to run it, or a big expensive PC. They can just run it from their laptop, which is, I think we're going to see more of that in the future. And subscription, this is a big thing. This is, Xbox Game Pass, I think, is probably the most successful of them, where you basically pay a fee every month and get access to a whole range of games. And I think that they call it the kind of Netflix of games, Xbox Game Pass. And I think I've seen Microsoft now selling their physical consoles with, bundled with subscription. And I think you're going to see more and more of that again over the next few years. So challenges, right? Well, skills recruitment in the region is obviously, I had a quick look today. All our major companies have, dozens of jobs available. It's just getting the right people to fill those roles, and obviously making sure that we get the right training for people on courses, and getting them to stay in the region as well. 60% of students that come to Yorkshire leave straight afterwards. So if you are a student at the University of York and you want to get into games, think about actually getting a job in the region, because there's some fantastic opportunities here. Access to finance investment. Most of the investment houses that invest in games, like London Venture Partners, bit of a clue in the title there, tend to be in London or the South. But we're getting better at getting access to finance, and there's a few more things coming out in the next few months that will give more access to games companies to money. And the government, to their credit, are funding things like the UK Games Fund, which allows companies to bid for sort of £25,000 of funding towards their game. So it is getting better, but it's still an issue. Political uncertainty, Brexit. Obviously, at the moment, things are all right, actually, with regarding Brexit. One of the few industries that isn't that bothered by it. It's weird, being one of the industries that were against it, we're actually not suffering that much at the moment. And I think a lot of that has been mitigated by COVID, interestingly, because, for example, if we wanted to get somebody from Germany to come and move to this country because they're, a good programmer or whatever, then at the moment, because of COVID, we wouldn't need to pay for a visa, which can be £1,000 plus for companies. It's very expensive. At the moment, we're just saying to everyone, we'll just stay where you are in Germany and we'll work from home, because everybody's working from home at the moment. So we'll have to see what's happening with Brexit. We'll have to see whether that affects the number of people that we can get coming into the industry from the EU. But so far, and we've just signed a deal, I think 2 weeks ago, about cross-border data. So far, it's not really affecting us, which, I think is a good thing, because I was certainly very worried about it. But yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. Losing talent overseas, yeah. This is it. If you're young, you're just coming out of university, you might think, well, I quite fancy going and working in Canada or the US or somewhere in the EU. You get a good deal from one of these games companies. They often can give you relocation fees, and they will help move you to those countries. And you just think, yeah, I quite fancy having a change and moving somewhere different. So we are losing talent overseas, it has to be said, and some companies are moving to the EU as well. Not too many, but a couple. So yeah, losing talent is something that we have to be careful of. Discoverability is a big thing. Oversaturation of digital markets. Now, this is the figure that I got from last year. If you're a small indie games company making a game and you're launching it on Steam, last year there were more than 10,000 games released on Steam. So I mean, how on earth are you going to get noticed with 10,000 other games on there? So it really is an issue. Getting noticed is a big problem for smaller games companies. Diversity, we're getting better, and we've got some great campaigns. Yuki, our national games organisation, is really doing some fantastic work in getting more women and BAME and LGBTQ plus people into the industry and being positive and saying, look how amazing our industry is. But yeah, we can always do more, and we need to do more. We need less people looking like me presenting to you. Okay, just a quick one about, I get asked, like, look, I'm kind of making games, I'm interested in making games. How do I get into the games industry? And it's a bit of a kind of a silly answer, really, simplified, but it's, are you making games, really? It's like, if you are passionate about getting into the games industry as a games maker, right, are you making games? Because there's really no excuse anymore. There's so much software out there, and I'll show some of them in a moment. But these are just two companies that are in our games network in Game Republic that came out of student companies. And these two companies were set up while the students were in their, I think, first or second year. And by the time they'd left university, they'd already had publishing deals and was making money selling their games. So being at university, it's a fantastic time to start, and you really need to be doing what you can while at university. If you're passionate about it, you'll be making games and creating things now. And like I said, there are some amazing tools out there. Unity and Unreal, obviously, are the two main engines that are used in the industry. You can download those for free. You can get trials of those and work out how they're used. But you can also get other less kind of techie kind of engines, like Game Maker Studio is I think it's got a free trial now as well. And there's some really great kind of engines that help you make games. I've got friends who cannot program at all and actually can't make art. They'll get friends to come and make their art, but they make their games in Game Maker, and they've done really well out of it. You know, Hotline Miami, for example, is a fantastic 2D game made in Game Maker. So there's some really great tools out there. There are also some really, talking of tools and toolkits, Game Maker's Toolkit is a series of talks by a friend of mine who's an ex-journalist called Mark, and he writes about game design and how game makers make their games and what they, you know, the decisions they make when they're making their games. And it's a really great resource. And I highly recommend you have a look at some of the talks on there. It's really fantastic series there. And also gamesindustry.biz, who I've done some work for, on YouTube, they have an amazing resource, which they're plugging a bit actually this week, because they've got some amazing talks on there. Like you've got Mike Bithell, who runs a games company, talking about what he wished he knew when he started out in video games, you know, before he set up his company. So he was, you know, a really great talk that about, you know, some of the things that he didn't realize that he had to do before setting up the company. We've got some great talks about how people got their big break, and a wonderful kind of art talk actually about how to create monsters from the guys that created Assembly, and how they worked on monsters in games like Alien Isolation. Really fantastic talks. I highly recommend you check out that on YouTube. And there are lots of free games events as well. These are sort of Games Careers Week is over now. It was in April, but there are always stuff happening. Check out Games Jobs Live on Twitter. Gamesindustry.biz, as I say, they have their academy. There's loads of stuff on there. The GI Get a Job in Games is happening as we speak. It's happening on their website, gamesindustry.biz. Yuki run a student conference. There's so much stuff going on. So just keep an eye out. Follow @GameRepublic, and I'll tweet all this. I tweet anything that's going on like this. I always tweet and say, look, make sure you check this out. So yeah, plenty of stuff going on. And yeah, top tips. A lot of this is kind of no-brainer stuff really, but learn about making games and the industry as well. Build diverse teams, make games and release them. That's it really. You know, get some experience, get your games out, even if they're not particularly very good. It shows, if you go for a job at Team 17 and you've shown that you've worked on a game and released it on the App Store or whatever, it'll be so much more impressive. Create awareness for your game. So this is about discoverability. So, you know, using social media and building up a community of people who are passionate about your game is so important nowadays. You almost need, like, the first job you need to get in your games company is a community manager. It's almost like the first thing you need to do. Network. Now, obviously, it's more difficult at the moment without physical events, but you can attend a lot of events online and meet games companies. You can, you know, go on Twitter and talk directly to games makers and ask them questions. And there's often Q&As and from people that I know in the industry where they regularly ask, you know, AMAs and all that kind of stuff. So get involved in all those communities. It's some fantastic resources now. Learn about the business of games, and this I think is quite important, because making games and creating a games company, if you want to be successful, you've got to know about marketing and how to pitch a game and how to raise finance and what milestones are and how to budget a game, and all this kind of stuff is really important. And the great thing is there's tons of resources out there where you can, even if you're not studying this on your course, you can look at some great websites like gamesindustry.biz and Develop, and loads of other websites that are out there where you can get some really great articles from experts and people who've run their own businesses about what to do. And work smart. I used to say work hard, but I don't think that's, you know, with all the stuff about burnout and everything nowadays, I think work smart is more important. And be nice. You know, this is a small industry. I bumped into people that I used to work with, and then they've come back and in a different guise in a different company 5 years later and said, hey, how are you doing? And, you know, you will meet people constantly in the games industry that you might have worked with early on. So, you know, be nice. You know, if you're an idiot, people will find out pretty quickly, and you won't get any work. So it's like, you know, be nice. That's it. Be nice to your fellow human beings. Just a few of the jobs. I'm not going to go through all these, but I can't program. I could barely program. I'm no good at art. I can kind of, blag my way through, journalism and a few other things. And if I can make it in games, anyone can make it, basically. So it's like, follow your passion. If there's something that you're particularly good at, if it's music and you want to get into making music for games, or you love writing, or you want to work in the hardware side of things, there's so much that you can do in the games industry. And there will be a job there for you. So yeah, get involved. We're a fantastic, lovely kind of industry to get into. Salaries, I thought I'd quickly mention this because it's not really talked about very much, but this is from quite a few years ago now, and so I think this has increased a little bit, but the average salary for the games industry in the UK 5-6 years ago was 33,800, which, isn't a great deal. There's you could get more as programmers and to be, studio heads and things like that. And also I know people that have had 5-figure sums as bonuses from games that have done well. So, at companies, you can get bonuses if your game does well and things like that. So this is a very conservative estimate. You can make a lot of money out of the games industry, but as a friend of mine once said, if you get into the games industry because you want a Porsche, you're in the wrong industry. The primary kind of motivation of making money shouldn't be the reason why you get into the games industry. You do it because you absolutely love games, you want to make games, you want to get involved. And this is it. The industry this is like a historical document now. When I look at this, looking at these wonderful shots of us in actually a lot of it is in pubs, so I apologize for that, but it's a wonderful industry, friendly, diverse, fun. People are great, and I love it. I fell in love with this industry. I kind of fell into it by accident almost, and once I was in, I just thought, my God, this is brilliant. Why don't more people know about this? This was 20 years ago. I think a lot more people do know about it now, but it's still, compared with like TV and film, I think it's not seen as a glamorous industry. And I think that's maybe to our advantage, actually, because I think that I've worked in TV and film and music industry as well, and they're great, but I found that the games industry is much more fun and down to earth, and the people are just lovely, and that's why I've stuck in this job for so long, because we've had so much fun, and I'm looking forward to getting back to doing physical events again soon, hopefully. You can see in the top right there, we had our Christmas party online, which is not the same as having it in person. It really isn't, but we still can have fun, and I think that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's not the making money, it's the working with people and having fun and playing games for research. That's it's just ridiculous. So I can heartily recommend the game industry as a career choice, and that's it really. I think I've wibbled on for long enough. If you've got any questions at all about any aspects of the games industry, apart from maybe tips on certain games I haven't played, please ask away. But thanks for listening, and yeah, look forward to hearing what you've got to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jamie. Really interesting talk. Yeah, I mean, so you clearly see video games as a strength of the region, would you say that?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, we've I think we're something like 7 or 8% of the games companies that are in the UK are based in Yorkshire and Humber, and we've had 2 of the biggest public offerings where companies are sold on the stock market, in Team 17 and Sumo, both from Yorkshire. And both of them made profits of I think 50 or 60 million pounds last year. So we're really kind of it's a fantastic industry. We're kind of booming at the moment. It's great, and this isn't not to kind of say that this is the case across the board, because there certainly isn't. It's much more complex than that, because the bigger companies are certainly doing well, and certainly some of the smaller companies as well. But it is very tough out there as well. And so, some companies, they just want to make enough money to make their next game, and that's what they want to do. But yeah, there is all the kind of major companies, they're all desperate for people to kind of join them, and they're expanding, and it's a good place to be at the moment. And we've tried not to be too triumphalist, because we're in a pretty still horrible situation really regarding the pandemic. But if you're looking for a silver lining, the fact is that we've got a wonderful industry in games, and it's right here in the region. You can work from home at the moment. We've got a lot of flexible working. Crunch is certainly, for the vast majority of companies, a thing of the past. People are a lot more aware of things like mental health nowadays, which they certainly were not even, when I joined the industry 20 years ago, but certainly not even 10 or even maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, now companies are really aware of that, and they don't push people and make them do things that they don't want to do. And we've got a very, very good set of companies in this region, and I think they set a good example of how to create an inclusive and welcoming workplace.
Good. That's really good to hear. And actually, that I'm seeing a question that's come up in the chat. Just encouraging our listeners, if you have questions, if you could just put them into the Q&A, if you possibly could, and I'll try and get to them one by one. But I'm just going to pull this one from the chat, following on really from what you're saying. Ella is asking, what is the culture like in the games industry in terms of flexible part-time working, again, thinking about being inclusive? You hear a lot of stories about having very intensive crunch periods. How true is that still?
Well, it's getting better. I think there's some companies that skew younger, where you perhaps, you are expected to work, longer hours and things like that. But I don't think you can get away with it anymore. I think that social media, and I think that some bad experiences of people at companies that have forced people to work, and people have left the industry in the past because of long work hours. I think companies have realized that you just can't do that anymore. You just can't work people to death, because they'll leave the company, and you've invested all this time and money in getting somebody to be part of your company and work well. Why on earth would you make them ill and make them so that they have to take time off work or even leave your company? So it's got a lot better. I'm not saying that everywhere is perfect, and I think some companies will vary. But for example, at Team 17, they just say, we don't crunch. You talk to Debbie Bestwick, CEO, it comes right from the top. She says, we don't crunch. We're a family business. We look at families. They tend to skew a bit older, Team 17. Lots of people have worked there for many years, and they have a very low turnover of people. But they realize people want to work hard, but they also want to spend time with their families. And so they're very open about the fact that they don't crunch, and crunch is only done because of bad planning. That's why crunch happens. So if it's happening, you're working at a company that isn't doing its job properly. It's not planning, it's not scheduling games properly. And as I say, I think the technology has got better for scheduling and doing all that stuff online and working remotely. I mean, goodness me, the games industry used to, before COVID, was working remotely. And I know companies like Thunk, who made the magnificent Truffle Pigs. Andrew, who runs the company, is based in Leeds, but he's got people working all over the world on that game. And so we were already working remotely on a smaller scale, but COVID has meant that, like Team 17, everybody is working from home at the moment. So they've had to work out. And Rockstar, everybody's working from home. Everybody is working from home at the moment, and so people have had to get used to, and companies have had to change the way that they run their businesses to make sure that they can still make games. And some companies, I haven't heard of any in the region yet, but a lot of them are. I think I'm trying to think of the games company that did it, but it's one in Oxford, I think, that said if you want to work from home permanently now, you can do it. And the thing is, working from home doesn't suit everybody. Some people prefer to actually at least come into the office a couple of times a week to meet their colleagues and have a chat and have meetings and things like that. And so I think I think going forward, we'll see a kind of, again, a hybrid version of that. And I think if people if they're good at their job and they're not getting the satisfaction from the games company that that they want, and they're not getting the hours that they want, and they're not seeing their family enough, they will leave, because there will be companies that will give them that flexibility and that will allow them to work from home if they want to. So I think this situation has kind of sped up what was happening anyway. I think by 5 to 10 years, I think we've seen compressed into a year of work.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? So it's really so the technology has sort of speeded up, the number of jobs has speeded up, and in a sense, some of the changes we've experienced over the last year or so have actually been positive. I'm just seeing a couple of other questions come up in Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
From Rebecca. What advice could you offer someone looking to move into content marketing in the games industry? Specifically, how easy might it be to transfer from content marketing in another field going into games? We've got some thoughts on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's pretty easy, to be honest. I mean, I know lots of people who've worked at bigger PR agencies on things like washing powder and stuff, and that have moved into doing games. I mean, there are games specific PR agencies, PR and marketing agencies. So I would say that you don't usually get larger marketing agencies that also do games. You might get one or two, but mostly you get games specific marketing and PR agencies. So one that we particularly work with and that I recommend to people, because somebody I know is based in Manchester who works for them, is Renaissance PR. And they do all kinds of things. They do marketing and work out marketing strategies, and they do PR campaigns and all that kind of stuff. So I think that it just depends on your skill set and whether you're good with people, and you can basically move between markets. And some of the PR people that I've worked with in the past, in the beginning, didn't even play games very much. So they got into it, and they kind of fell in love with it, and then started to really get to know their subject. But I think you like with anything, if you're marketing something or PRing something, you really need to do your research and do whatever your PR or marketing. But yes, certainly. I mean, it's there are jobs in. I saw one the other day going in a PR agency that's specifically for games. There are certainly jobs around, and there are certainly PR jobs in the north as well, which is brilliant, which never used to be the case 10 years ago, but it's certainly happening a lot more.
Great, that's great. And then I've got a a question here from Jude Brereton at the university. Could you say a little more about the skills gap or recruitment problem? So what skills might graduates be missing, in your opinion? Sort of coding skills, art skills, anything else?
It's a tricky one, that one, because it really varies on company to company. So, for example, some of the companies I work with, they just want programmers that can, and I'm not talking about programmers that can, program Unity and the engine side of things. They want C++ programmers that can basically, they can get in, they can see the matrix, they can go in there and they can actually program graphics engines and all sorts. So they're looking for that. Others are perhaps looking for like designers and people that perhaps have more experience in project management, for example. But it's what we need to do better, I think, at the games industry is work experience and placements, because I think that's where we can bring real value, and we can get students in and actually show them how it works on the job. Because there's so many students and graduates that I've met that have said, and this isn't to have a go at any of the universities, because some of the courses in our region are second to none. They're absolutely the best in the country. But the difference between working on a course, doing coursework, to working in a games company is vastly different, and working in a commercial environment. And so students that have said, the graduates that have gone to work for companies have just said, look, I've learned so much in just 3 months. I've learned as much as I learned in a year at the university, because you're learning basically about being part of a team. That's teamwork and working together, and the soft skills actually are a lot of the things that maybe are lacking in a certain number of graduates. This is something that I heard when I did a jobs event last year, kept coming up again and again. Soft skills, this is the ability obviously to be able to
working
communicate,
as a team, that kind of
thing. Communicate with other people, take criticism, be positive, work towards a kind of common goal, that kind of stuff. And just working with people, getting on with people is just a big skill to have, and something that's probably not kind of almost, you can't teach that sort of stuff. You can kind of encourage it, but I think also I think that it's just a matter of fact that a lot of the companies, they can only take on so many kind of graduate positions, if you like, the kind of starter positions, and a lot of the job roles that you'll see are for more experienced developers, and so there are only so many jobs that are available, and there are thousands and thousands of graduates that come out of courses every year, so not everyone is going to get a job in the industry, and that's a sad thing. But I think that students can certainly make themselves more attractive to getting a job in the industry by, like I've said, working on games, making stuff together, getting a team together, working on games, releasing them, doing that sort of thing. That is ultimately much more impressive than anything you can have on a CV. Obviously, it's important to get a good degree and everything, but if you can have that and say, yes, as well as that, I did my coursework, but oh yeah, also me and my friends got together and we made this little game, and we've got so-and-so to do the artwork, and we got somebody from the music department to do the music, and we got all this. If they can make it, work together on finishing a project and release it, it's just so much more impressive.
Yeah.
But we're, just on skills, always need more programmers, C++, good. If you're a good programmer, you will walk into a job. Good artists, really good artists that can draw as well, and not just make stuff in 3D CAD or whatever, they can actually draw physically, and do sketches. Always needed, really.
Good. Just a quick question from me. I wanted to come back to the art thing in a minute, but in terms of building our sort of regional games industry, what do you think is needed to sort of keep skills in the region, to stop people necessarily deciding to go elsewhere? Do you think that the government funding in any particular way or particular direction would be helpful? Anything like that?
Yeah, I think that would be. I mean, just from my point of view at Game Republic, I run a free network as well called Gamma.io, which is open to students and anybody can join. It's free. The only caveat is that when I haven't done this for a few months because I've been busy, but I get back to everybody who applies. It's on Facebook, which is not ideal, but I've stuck with Facebook for now. But I get back to everyone and say, right, here are the questions. Tell me what you're up to. What are the projects you've made? Things like that. So, and 9 times out of 10, you'd be surprised, I get things back saying, well, I'm on a games course and I want to, join Gamma.io. And so I reject immediately, because it's like, so what? Everybody else is on a games course. You've got to be able to demonstrate what you're doing outside of your games course. So if you apply to Gamma.io, you say, yeah, I'm working at the university. I'm a student at the University of York, but I'm also working on this stuff in my spare time. I'm doing this with some friends or whatever. Impress me, because you're not just going to get in because you're a student working on a games course. So what, you've got to impress people. So it would be great if we could do more networking and more stuff aimed at educating students to sort of say, look, make stuff, so it'd be great to do more like game jams
and kind of light the fire with them as well, presumably.
Yeah, exactly. And get more companies where we can fund companies to take on students and in placements in their gap year and things like that. And that is starting to happen. I think Sure Start and some stuff like that that's starting to happen. But there's more stuff I think we can do with like school age and students about making games and getting them involved and showing them the paths into industry. And as an industry, we need to do more on kind of placements and what do you call it, where you get folks in and do a year with them. Yeah, internships and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
apprenticeships and all that kind of stuff. We need to be able to do more, and I think the more help that we get to do that, the better. And I think that also, I think there's a new accelerator. I mean, yourselves at University of York have got accelerators and incubators and that sort of thing with XR Stories, which is brilliant. But more of that sort of thing where students, if they want to, they can take their projects and work on them and look at getting help from industry and to kind of nurture them, really, because it's tough. Setting up a games company from university, most student companies fold in that first year. But the good thing is, even if that happens, they've had that experience of running a company, and then they usually, because they've had a bit of extra experience of doing that, get snapped up by companies in the region anyway. So I think it's kind of just encouraging more students to kind of look at the paths into the industry and helping them learn about the stuff that you need to learn about, and not be kind of naive about how tough it is, because it really it's so competitive to get into the industry. But once you get a foot in the door, you can, and once you get into a company, it's funny, you might get a job in a games company like Team 17, for example. If you go on their website, you can be a QA tester. Anybody can apply. You might as well, do that after this. Look at the Team 17 website. They've got a usability lab. You can get paid work, playing games for Team 17. And I know people that have started doing that and then got a job in QA, quality assurance, which is an important part of the industry. Some of them stay in that role and they love it, and an important part of games testing and making sure that games work. But I know people that have moved from QA into production, into doing all sorts of things. And once you get a job in a games company, I've got another friend who got in to do marketing in a games company, and he enjoyed that side of things, but he realized that he actually really enjoyed making games as well. So he's now a games producer. So he's kind of shifted jobs. So it becomes a lot easier to kind of work out and get the job you want once you get a kind of job in the industry.
Yeah. So Jamie, we're coming up on closing up now. I don't know, do you have time for one more question, do you think?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Amy wanted to ask, she, by the looks of it, has an art background, and just wondered if you had any thoughts specifically for people who are passionate about games but have that sort of background, would like to get into the sort of more art side of things.
Yeah, I think again, just keep drawing, keep doing stuff, and keep improving and improving your portfolio, and make sure you've got a really good portfolio online. Choose your kind of 5 or 6 best pieces of work and keep updating it, keep putting in your best work, and make sure you try and get a kind of nice spread of stuff that you've done. If you're good at hand drawing, keep some hand drawing in there. Don't just have 3D stuff and models of guns and things like that, which I see a lot of. Try and keep it as varied as possible. And I think the more influences you can show as well, the better. Don't just be influenced by games, be influenced by architecture and theatre and whatever. Breathe in all this other stuff, and demonstrate that you can create characters or backgrounds and things that look genuinely kind of like interesting and different to what's out there. Have a look at some of the portfolios that are perhaps online from professional games artists. I'm trying to find, there was a hashtag I saw the other day on Twitter that had some amazing artwork on there. I'm trying to think what the hashtag is. I'll try and find what that is and let you know, Isabel. You can maybe pass it on to people. But Twitter is a fantastic resource for looking at what other artists are up to and how good they are. So have a look at what other artists are doing that are in the industry, and sort of look at aiming to be as good as they are. And yeah, varied portfolio. But if you're good, you will make it. If you're a good artist, you will definitely get a job in games. There's no doubt.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think we're going to start wrapping up, Jamie. We're
cool. Okay.
Yeah, we're just 4 minutes to 2, and I know you've got something else that you need to get to as well.
Yes, I've actually got another call at 2. Yeah. So, but no, thank you for inviting me today, and I hope I didn't wibble on too much.
No, this has been really interesting. It's good to get a real sort of insider's insight into how things work and how to get ahead in the industry, and really good to hear about Game Republic too. So Jamie,
thank you for being members. Thank you.
Yes, we'll be coming along to your events.
Yes, good stuff. Brilliant.
Lovely. All right, thank you very much, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you. See you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you.